Under the vast Arabian sky, where stars shimmered like secrets of the divine, there was one story the desert refused to bury, the story of a love that was never meant to be ordinary. Sheikh Hamdan, known to the world as Fazza, had written thousands of poems about love, but there was one woman who turned his ink into blood, his words into prayer. She wasn't a fleeting fantasy or a dream passing through the night. She was destiny itself, dressed in simplicity, walking into his royal life like a whisper of fate. Every time he saw her, he felt something shift within him, something sacred, as if God had painted her existence into his heart long before he was born. She came into his world not with grandeur or titles, but with a quiet strength that disarmed him completely. Her eyes carried a calm he could not find in palaces, her voice carried truth that not even the royal court could command. For the first time, the Crown Prince of Dubai felt small, not in weakness, but in wonder. She made him realize that love was not always about passion, sometimes, it was about peace. And that peace was her. She wasn't a dream to be chased, she was the part of his soul he never knew was missing until he found it reflected in her gaze. Fazza often said that poetry was born from pain, but with her, his words flowed from joy. Every verse he wrote felt like a confession to destiny, as if he was finally writing the story he had been waiting to live. He would look at her and feel the world fall away. No titles, no guards, no crowns. Just two souls meeting at the edge of eternity. But fate, cruel and beautiful, had its own script, and love between a prince and a common soul was a melody too pure for the noise of the world. She taught him what freedom truly meant, not the freedom of land or law, but the freedom of the heart. In her presence, Fazza was not Sheikh Hamdan, the Prince of Dubai. He was simply a man, vulnerable, human, and deeply alive. He once wrote, "When she smiles, the city lights grow jealous." Those who read it thought it was a metaphor, but it wasn't. He had seen that smile turn his world golden, brighter than the sunrise over Burj Khalifa. Their love was a secret written in sand, delicate yet defiant. They met under the pretense of art, poetry, and conversation, but the truth was written in their silence. Every glance carried the weight of a promise, every goodbye felt like eternity folding upon itself. The palace walls were too high to let such love survive, yet too fragile to keep it hidden. Fate, once again, began to test the strength of two hearts that dared to dream beyond their destinies. When the whispers reached the royal ears, duty stood in the doorway of his heart like an uninvited guest. He knew what was coming, the conversation that would remind him of his position, his responsibilities, his bloodline. But none of those things could silence the truth his soul already knew. She wasn't a passing chapter. She was the entire book. Still, the world demanded that he choose, and when he chose the crown, his heart bled ink. That night, he stood at the balcony overlooking Dubai's glittering skyline, wondering how a city so alive could feel so empty. The wind carried her scent, or maybe it was memory playing tricks again. He whispered her name into the silence and wrote a verse in his heart. She wasn't my dream. She was the destiny I met too soon. The tears that fell weren't of weakness, but of reverence, for love that was too divine to be owned, only felt. Years went by, but time could not erase her from his story. Her absence became his muse, her silence his teacher. He began to understand that destiny was not always about possession, sometimes, it was about purpose. She had entered his life not to stay, but to awaken him. To remind him that beneath the gold of royalty, there was still a beating heart longing for something eternal. She was his reminder that love is the only crown that never fades. Every poem he wrote after her carried a fragment of her soul. The world read his words and called them beautiful, but he knew they were scars dressed as poetry. Love does not end, he once said in an interview, it only changes form. And in his case, it had transformed into art, into devotion, into a quiet ache that lived in every heartbeat. She had become part of his rhythm, unseen, but always present.
Sometimes, when he writes, he feels her presence near him. Like the air shifts, like the silence listens. He doesn't need to see her to know she's there. The bond between them transcends the ordinary. He writes as though she's reading, as though each word he pens might find its way to her heart. He writes not because he expects her return, but because writing keeps her alive within him. The page has become his confessional, the ink his tears, and poetry his redemption. If love is a sin against duty, then he has sinned beautifully. He would rather be haunted by her memory than be untouched by love. In his solitude, he has found strength. In his heartbreak, he has found truth. The crown may have demanded his sacrifice, but love gave him his soul. And that soul, scarred, royal, poetic, still belongs to her. He now understands that some loves are not meant to be lived, they are meant to be felt across lifetimes. Some souls meet only to awaken each other, to remind one another of what it means to be truly alive. He carries her within him like a secret prayer, one that no one hears but everyone feels through his words. She is the silence between his verses, the ache behind his smile, the eternal flame beneath the royal calm. And when the night falls over Dubai and the stars begin their quiet vigil, he looks up and whispers her name softly, letting it dissolve into the wind. He knows she will never return, yet he keeps her promise alive through every heartbeat. Between duty and desire, he lost her, but in losing her, he found the kind of love that defies time, power, and destiny. A love that may not live in his arms, but forever reigns within his soul.
Perhaps she would tell him that her presence was never meant to last forever, only to awaken forever within him. And maybe, just maybe, that was her purpose all along, not to stay, but to transform him into the poet the world now calls Fazza. And as he stands beneath the same sky that once watched them fall in love, he finally understands the meaning of divine love, one that exists beyond touch, beyond time, beyond titles. She wasn't royal, yet she taught him what true nobility is. She wasn't his queen, yet she ruled his heart like one ordained by destiny itself. And so, in every word he writes, in every dream he breathes, she reigns, quietly, endlessly, beautifully, the unseen queen of a prince's soul.